let me start by saying thanks to the FCDO, both our SRO and the team in the UK and the country offices where we've operated throughout the 4 years of the programme. We've really appreciated the strong relationships that we've built up over that period with you, which has certainly enhanced our work and the results of it. Also like to say thanks to the African Enterprise Challenge Fund, AECF, and the International Finance Corporation for being such strong and cooperative partners for delivery of the overall ACE programme. You've certainly made our delivery of the ACE Technical Assistance Facility easier and more effective. And also thanks to our ACE-TAF partners in GOGLA, OCA and WRI for all their work. Like so many development programs globally, ACE-TAF has had to operate in the challenging environment imposed by COVID and other events, and it's had to learn to adapt and operate remotely and virtually. Equally, like so many programs, our team has adapted with great skill, supported by FCDO colleagues, and has achieved and exceeded its targets and results. Today it really marked the culmination of a series of learning events held in each of ACE-TAF's current countries of operation over the past 2 weeks. Moreover, and as far as possible, we're bringing together experiences from all 14 countries where ACE-TAF has operated over the last 4 years, and a number of our former country staff have very kindly agreed to join today to share their knowledge and understanding of what ACE-TAF has delivered. A particular focus today will be on lessons that have emerged over the past 4 years. We will review, discuss and debate these as far as possible and hope they will be of use for future programming in the off-grid renewable energy sectors, which are so crucial for meeting the UN's goal of universal access to energy for everyone. I'd just like to finally say, wish you a real success for this meeting. Make sure you have some fun along the way. And once again, many thanks for allowing me to say a few words up front. So with that, I'll pass back to the room.
Thank you very much, Ben, for your remarks. I think we've heard you, and we appreciate. Thank you for taking time off your schedule to just join us from London. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Again, we continue to sincerely, just apologize to our virtual audience. I know we've seen messages that we missed out on the remarks made by Claire. Try as much as possible to make those ones available to you. So we want to proceed, and again, as I said, kindly put your comments online as we chat and engage. And we'll keep reading and just following those comments. Let me now ask Joyce Demucci to come over, for the next conversation with the country managers.
Welcome, everyone. I feel like I'm sitting around my family dinner table because I know all the faces in the room, and I looked at all the people online, and I know many of them too. So really look forward to this discussion. And I can't emphasize enough how much this is really a discussion. I don't want to sit up here and tell you what we did and how great we are. But the intention of this is really to get input from everyone in the room, and especially online, on ideas and what you think of what we did and the lessons that we're going to present. So it's really about a conversation. The floor is open. Everything except my first form is open to discussion. So please feel free. Good afternoon again. So what I'm going to be doing is summarizing the impact of TAF, the Technical Assistance Facility. So what the impact was. So let me just say, just raise your hand, Mary. Mary was a former country manager for Kenya, Somalia, and Ghana. Not an easy task, should talk about that. And I think Colin, are you around? Where are you? Raise your hand. There he is. Colin is in the room as well. Swahili, welcome. And then online, we're going to hear from Reggie. Reggie, can you put on your video? Or can we put on Reggie's video? Reggie, just wave. Reggie is our former country manager from Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Had a lot to do with the success that we had in the program in those two countries. Malik Sik, are you there? Former country manager from Senegal. We'll be hearing from him later, I believe. Aminata, I don't know if Ami's going to be able to stay with us, but she's a former country manager from Sierra Leone. And then Ed Phillips from Malawi and Joel Eisen from Uganda. Not sure if those guys are online yet or not. But as we ask them some questions, we'll definitely bring them up online. Okay, so let me get started. I've been, as I said, working in the sector for more than 10 years. So for some of you, that's before SDG 7. Wait, like 3 years before SDG 7. So somehow, we in the room and those online, we understand the challenges that especially vulnerable groups have because of lack of energy access and the impact that power has on the livelihoods, both social and economic development. The video, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a video running and it showed some of the, I'm going to call it old uses of energy and the old way of lighting, candles, kerosene lanterns. Unfortunately, it's probably a high percentage of those 500,000 or 500 million are still using those types of sources. But it reminds us all of why we're here today. We often think of the top down and the billions that we need, but the reason that we need that billions is to electrify those people and get them off of poor quality lighting and energy sources and onto good quality solar, in this case, home systems. So I'm certain that many of you in this room and many of you online have actually experienced this growing up. I know I experienced it 12 years ago when I moved to the continent, so I know it's been a challenge. That said, let's keep those people in mind as we can. I'm not gonna go through this in detail, but I understand that we might have missed some of this in the opening remarks. So I'll talk to the mandate of ACE-TAF. I'll go through what we found in the beginning when we looked at designing the program and we did market assessments. And then you won't hear from me for all of this. I'll talk about the journey and our impact with the country managers. We'll hear from Jeremy. Jeremy will be facilitating the big 5 lessons, having a conversation with the panel. And then I'm excited for Chris and I to have a little fireside chat on the opportunities. And this is, again, I want to reiterate, please put questions in the chat. If your comment comes up, just put it in the chat. We really want this to be interactive. In the room, we still have hands. I know it's crazy to think about that. Please raise your hands if you have comments you'd like to contribute. Next slide. So, give me 1 second. So as Claire mentioned, and I'll reiterate, ACE-TAF is part of a broader Africa Clean Energy program funded by FCDO. The other 3 elements was a mini-grid element. Also, Africa Clean Energy, AECF was managing the Household Solar React Fund, which is a TA facility and grant facility for the companies directly. And then IFC and CLASS, who we work very closely with, were our experts, our technical experts in quality standards, helping us get from no standards in country to adoption of standards, and then also implementing quality labs. That said, the specific TAF mandate was to provide support to governments across the 14 countries to improve the enabling environment for standalone solar products, specifically high-quality standalone solar products. We wanted to facilitate private sector growth and hence increase access to high-quality products, specifically targeting vulnerable communities. Our approach, which I think is the secret sauce, as I'll say, was to facilitate across governments, the private sectors, and donors. We met in all of our meetings, and we constantly reiterated that we don't represent one or the other, but tried to facilitate that conversation. And I think that that was part of our success. Our interventions were organized into 3 pillars. First, we set out to improve the policy and regulatory environment to de-risk the off-grid sector, to attract financing so that the private sector could thrive. Secondly, we found that although there was a lot of information about the sector, the evidence was not necessarily the right information, or the information was not utilized effectively. So as we developed knowledge products, we built on existing information. We developed new evidence and tools, ensuring recommendations were viable, and we attempted to ensure that the findings were validated before we published them, and most importantly, shared across multiple stakeholders. Finally, and in my opinion, and probably the most powerful pillar, was our approach to coordination. TAF collaborated on interventions with other programs, across government institutions, across countries, and developed or worked through existing coordination mechanisms in all the countries. We attempted to ensure that we were not reinventing the wheel and that our interventions were effective and efficient. Offline, if you have a conversation with any of the country managers, they probably got tired of me saying, well, is anyone else doing that? Why are we doing that? Why are we including what they're doing? So our approach helped us to continue making progress during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as helped lead to what we hope to be sustainable impact over the next few years, and increasing energy access, most specifically for vulnerable communities. Next slide. So what was it like in the beginning? So 4 years ago now, we carried out market assessments across all 14 countries. And by the way, halfway through the program, it was in beginning of 2021. So after COVID had come in, we actually revised those market assessments, and we actually shifted our last year program to address any issues that came up during COVID. But in the beginning, in 2019, there were a few things that we found. There was a disconnect within government policies between energy access and fiscal incentives, between policies and the investment was focused on the grid still, and grid expansion, and not necessarily on the integration of off-grid to help reach rural communities, let alone actually standalone solutions that might have helped reach some of the more remote areas. There was a disconnect within most government policies between energy access and technologies that could be provided, i.e. was mini-grid a solution or was it a standalone solution? Which one? And ministries were focused on grid extension because they didn't have the information on how off-grid all solutions could help reach universal energy access. They didn't know if it was the least cost-effective method. In some cases, energy strategies identified off-grid as potential solutions, but they did not identify standalone solar specifically or identify specific targets in those strategies to help reach their energy access goals. Secondly, we found that 5 out of the 14 countries had no quality standards, and most had a lot of work to do to upgrade standards and adopt new standards. And in fact, processes to enforce those standards were pretty limited. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Most financing in 2019 was focused on large companies and the supply side vehicles, and was not focused on direct consumer financing or reducing the affordability burden for those that needed it the most. PAYGO is a strong solution to overcome the upfront cost of providing energy solutions to end users. However, there was an over-reliance on PAYGO, what we found in 2019, and other business models like MFIs and other partnerships which limited access to SAS in countries such as Ethiopia for example, where pay-go, now the market will find, has been opened up to some pay-go companies, but then our emphasis was on pay-go, 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 and it wasn't a viable solution in Ethiopia. Stakeholders were not talking to each other constructively, and governments did not have the capacity to manage, let alone monitor or hold programs accountable for progress being made in scaling the markets and improving access to their population. So much has changed over the past 4 years. The world experienced a global pandemic. Government administrations changed in many of the countries that we worked in, and countries experienced civil unrest. And through this all, I keep kind of, you get into this, what have we done, what have we done? But I keep forgetting that for 18 months, or at least 12 months, there were restrictions in place. So we had to shift. And we were able to do that because of the people on the ground. However, all of these, and specifically the pandemic, highlighted the value of standalone solar solutions and continuing to keep the lights on for millions of people. So next slide. I'm almost done. You can stop listening to me and get some input from them. So we've categorized our journey into 4 little bubbles. There is a ton of detail behind all of this. You can find more information on our website, but we'll talk a little bit about what we did. But before I start talking about the impact, let me be clear. When I use the word impact, and I'm going to thank Claire for this, because she kept saying, well, what does that matter? How did it change the sector? So we kept trying to answer that question. And over the past 4 years, ACE-TAF and our partners have laid the groundwork for much of the impact that we haven't seen, but we're gonna see over the next 2 to 3 years. So when we talk today, it could be we made that impact, or we hope that the momentum continues for the sector to see those changes. So in some cases, we'd be able to see the changes now, and in others, we'll see them in the future. For example, we have seen a shift in government's willingness to adopt quality standards, to adopt mandatory quality standards, and for example, approve custom guides to clarify tax incentives in the importation process to ensure that only high quality products reach the market much faster. That's been done. We've seen that. We recognize that governments have shifted. And we've implemented quality labs, done, in 3 countries. But we will only see the impact of those interventions when we see a decrease in poor quality products in the markets and observe an increase in consumer confidence and hence consumer purchase. So a bit of detail before I ask the first question. So Reggie, if you're online, get ready. You're the first question. But to date, the program, and this is actually at the end of March, we've supported 40 public and 12 private unique institutions to improve their policies, regulations, and advocacy capacities. So organizations such as the Ministry of Energy, across the Ministry of Finance, standards bureaus, regulatory agencies, and industry associations. ACE-TAF influenced host government institutions to develop and approve 35 standalone solar energy policies and regulations across all 14 countries. So energy policies that now affect the off-grid space, fiscal policies that include tax exemptions or reduction in tax on standalone solar products, IEC quality standards for standalone solar products up to now 350 watts, which was brand new and just adopted by IEC as we were implementing these. Just adopted by the IEC. ACE-TAF produced 60 high-quality knowledge products, events ranging from gender, equity, and social inclusion guides, alternative consumer finance recommendations, customs handbooks, demand-side subsidy frameworks, articles, technical reports, webinars, roundtables across different government ministries. So pat yourselves on the back, all of those that we introduced earlier on. Fantastic work, and that's just literally a handful. So check out, and the information will still be available to share across other countries over the next, after the program closes. So let me just get started on, what do we mean when we say improved quality and consumer protection? The first step in ensuring that good quality products reach the market is to ensure that countries adopt IEC standards, testing and product standards. And thanks to the determination of IFC and CLASP, our technical partners, most of the countries have now adopted IEC testing and product standards for up to 350 watt household solar systems. Technical committees were set up, lighting global and IEC standards were discussed, and various government adoption processes were followed to get to this point. And believe me, they were not all standard processes to get to adopt these standards across the countries. So let me see, is Reggie online? Reggie, are you there? I saw him signed up.
Yes, I'm online, but can I hardly hear you. You're very faint, Joyce.
Okay, Reggie, can you hear me better now?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So Reggie, I was just talking about the quality standard adoption process. Yeah. How did ACE-TAF, welcome, by the way. I don't know where you are, I can't see you, but hi, if you can see me. How did ACE-TAF coordinate with the ministry and other stakeholders to jumpstart the technical committees that were necessary and jumpstart the standards adoption process in Zimbabwe, which is, I think, where you are right now and where you're from?
Yeah, thank you very much, Joyce, and it's nice to see everyone here. It's unfortunate that Pauline is not here with us. May soul rest in peace. I think the ACE-TAF project in Zimbabwe, especially if you're talking about standards adoption, is one perfect example of an intervention which really was in tandem with what the government was planning to do. The Ministry of Energy, they developed a policy, renewable energy policy of 2019. And after they did that, they also did what they call the renewable energy implementation matrix. And in that matrix standards, the standards, the standards sector also formed quite a big part of the implementation matrix. So when ACE-TAF came into play with this project, it fit very well into that. It was a process whereby, all the other standards along the solar technology had been adopted, and they were really struggling to see how they can bring sanity into the standalone systems because of high demand. Hello, can you hear me?
Any chat at all?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
No chat at all.
Yeah. So because of an increased demand of standalone systems, there was quite a lot of chaos in the market. And when this project came into play, I think it was at the right time.
No chat.
And the process was so smooth in that Standard Association of Zimbabwe was also very supportive in forming a technical committee.
It's a disaster.
Forming a technical committee to focus on the adoption of ACE 6257-9-5 and -9-8. And you would realize that in the process, all the other partners, your renewable energy associations, were very, very keen on this. And because, like I said earlier on, it was something that the policy was really anticipating to achieve under the renewable energy implementation matrix. And from there, you'd realize that after the committee met, they adopted most of the recommendations in the two standards. And we wanted to do what we called the national-wide stakeholder consultations, where we went to different provinces and districts to consult with the relevant stakeholders, especially those that are affected with the standards, the private sector companies, the consumers, as well as the revenue authorities, because they also really have an interest in that. Unfortunately, the project was coming to an end, but we managed to launch the standards in March 2021. And because there was such a good partnership that was going on in the adoption of these standards, GOGLA came in with some funding after that to really continue with the process, because adoption is one thing and implementation of the standards is another thing. So we again convened as a committee and other stakeholders to ensure that we draft an SI, a statutory instrument, to ensure that these become mandatory and obligatory in the market. And I'm glad to say that up to this date, we've managed to conclude on that. And we are left with only one step, of which, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority has taken up also the responsibility to convene a 2-day workshop to finalize on the legal components of that statutory instrument. So we'll be doing that in the next 2 weeks here in Zimbabwe to really finalize on the statutory instrument. We have the Attorney General's office who, in fact, they have the final say on the legal language. But I would like also to say that in terms of partnership, there was really good support from GOGLA, of course, and other partners, but also CLASP. I think they were there from the beginning up to this day. They've also attended physically, even after the project closed. They've really come here to Zimbabwe to support the whole process. And I really appreciate the support that has been coming from them. I think it has made our work also quite easy in terms of really following the adoption of these standards.
Thank you so much. And thanks for the update, actually. So we see in Zambia our work actually, even though it ended a year ago, this June, a year ago today, actually, there's that momentum continues. And like you said, we're close to finalizing those standards, which is great. So we know about standards adoption, but the enforcement of those standards are a longer term objective. So I've seen CLASP with the technical lead set up the quality labs in Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Zambia, and train the staff on market surveillance, a process by which those countries will be able to monitor the quality of poor quality products in the market. That's one of the steps in helping countries enforce those standards. But in Ethiopia, Kanasa, tell us about the work that ACE-TAF and the government did on pre-export verification certifications, PBOC, to help enforce those standards.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm happy just to witness what the ACE-TAF has done regarding consumer protection, especially the adoption of standards. So quality assurance is very important for one country to protect the consumer from low products and its impact. When ACE-TAF started, it identified government stakeholders. Actually, there are different government stakeholders which work on the quality assurance. It's not like in Kenya or in Uganda. There are different independent offices for standards. For example, there is an Ethiopian Standards Agency, which is not online, so develop standard. You can't project it. So what's that camera doing? Confirms or assures the quality of products by testing. And there is a Ministry of Regional Industry, who is a regulatory body for import and export goods. So ACE-TAF identified all this, and I've been working with this one. So in collaboration with UNDP and IFC CLASP, ACE-TAF adopted the IC standard, that is the 62257-9-8 2020, and the testing method for plug and play DC type up to 350 watts peak. So that is now approved by the National Standard Council of Ethiopia. And again, with the support from IFC and CLASP, there is now the laboratory, or the Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Laboratory, is upgraded for expertise from the Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise. They have taken training, 3 weeks training here in Nairobi. And they have taken also additional online training, and now the laboratory is upgraded. So having standard and laboratories is not enough. There should be a PVOC. PVOC is the pre-export verification of conformity. That is to inspect products at the port of entry before they come into the country. So ACE-TAF, starting from its beginning until it is implemented, is working on this, on contracting 2 agencies, conformity agencies, COTECNA and Bureau Veritas. Now the 2 conformity agencies are now working. They are working on this implementation of PVOC. So now the 3, that means the standard is adopted, the laboratory is upgraded, and there is a PVO system in place. The 3 work together. Without standard, PVOC is nothing. Without market surveillance, standard is nothing. Now the 3 are in place. So thanks to ACE-TAF, that now the Ministry of Trade and the regional industry, they have just take initiative to write letter to the National Bank of Ethiopia, that National Bank of Ethiopia write letter to all banks, that all private sectors, whenever they import products to the country, they have to use only these 2 companies whenever they want to open an LLC. The one important, very important impact of this PVOC is PVOC is a pilot program. It's only for solar. There is no any other PVOC in Ethiopia except this one, which is piloted by ACE-TAF. So the Ministry of Trade and the regional industry is now in the process to expand this PVOC process to all mandatory products in Ethiopia.
Yeah, which those funds were stagnant, is my understanding. But despite not completing the program there, this initiative was critical for the off-grid sector in Tanzania. So tell us about that, and how did that help overcome this affordability challenge? And maybe you can give us an update on what's happening with those funds.
Thanks, Joyce. So at the time, ACE-TAF, we wanted to intervene into Tanzania to try to unlock the World Bank credit line to the tune of 20 million, which had been sitting without being dispersed to the private sector. In this case, the standalone solar companies. So what we did is we tried to analyze the situation. And at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was we saw a gap within the participating financial institution, the commercial banks that were part of that credit line. So as a program, we said we'll be doing capacity building to this bank. Because the issue is the banks do not know much about the technology of standalone solar, which in a way affected their ability to do due diligence to those projects. So as a problem, as I said, we wanted to do the capacity building to this PFI, participating financial institution. There are 3. But then when we do a plan, we also identify the risk on how this intervention will be successful. And one of the risks was we were only targeting commercial banks, but there was a bigger problem within the private sector, the companies that were supposed to get this funding. There are 3 problems within the private sector. One, and I'll talk about Tanzania, they were not very able to do project documentation to get the funding from the bank. One, equity, they didn't have much capital to contribute to the projects. But the bigger problem was strict collateral requirement. Even though this was a concessional financing within the World Bank, still these companies were required to provide a guarantee. So, at the time, before we put our foot on the ground, we had to cause the problem in Tanzania. But on the 11th hour, we were having discussion with a program called REAP, Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership. It's based in Vienna, Austria. So they also wanted to solve the same problem from a different angle. And by sheer luck, it sort of like meet or identified the risk that we had already mentioned, that we still had a problem to address in the issue of where will these companies get guarantee to address it, collateral. So RIP came up with a cash enhancement facility to try to help these companies to produce guarantees so that they can get this loan. So at that time, ACE-TAF and RIP were talking to intervene together, but we had to close the program. And so when we closed the program, we handed over that intervention to RIP to continue. So what did we do as ACE-TAF so that the RIP could continue? We did 2 things. We did 3 things. One, we shared the intervention plan that we had drawn to do, which was what the capacity building plan to the commercial bank. So we shared with them. But 2, we linked them with the World Bank. The World Bank was the funder of that facility, and they were interested party to see the money goes out. So we sort of introduced them to RIP. To have a meeting between RIP and the World Bank. And then 3, what we did is RIP had done market assessment of the country to really understand access to finance issues. So they still have some unanswered questions. So as a program, we usually have them to validate some of the gaps they had to understand this program. So in short, ACE-TAF provided, I can say, a launchpad for RIP to continue with the intervention. And as I speak, the following has happened after ACE-TAF had exited into intervention to unlock this facility. One, RIP managed to enter into an agreement with the fund manager, which is TIB, to sort of continue on how they can provide guarantees so that the money can go out. Second, RIP published operation manual to sort of identify standalone solar companies which can be eligible for the cash cover. 3, which was, I think was a bigger one, RIP continued or identified or built a pipeline of eligible and viable standalone solar companies that can have that money. And this was very, very important because all along TIB, or the fund manager, was so much biased to what we call small power producers, because that money was to be shared between standalone solar companies and small power producers. But all of the transactions were through the small power producers. So this was an important step to tell TAB to say, we have standalone solar companies which are viable, which can get this money. And then the other thing which was very, very important, and which I think RIP took it from us, meaning from ACE-TAF, they designed a training program. They designed a training program in collaboration with RENAC, a training firm in Germany. So as I speak, they've already held 2 sessions with the financial institutions, which pretty much what we wanted to do. And also they held a session as well with the private sector, meaning the off-grid companies. So still no money has gone out, as I said, but it pretty much put a good ground for the money to be dispersed in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Colin, for everyone, TIB. TIB stands for?
I'm sorry. TIB stands for Tanzania Investment Bank. In this case, the fund manager of this World Bank credit line.
Great. Thanks, Colin. So I wanted him to represent that because it sounds like you brought some people together and was trying to get these people to talk to each other, but it was quite the feat to get to where ACE got at the end a year ago. And it's also a representation of what we've tried to do a year ago when we stopped in a few countries, in some of the countries, and what we're trying to do now is to really try and hand over some of these conversations and all of the efforts and the work that we've done to other partners to continue the work. Excuse me. So I have 10 minutes, go pretty quick. So let me go on to the last 2 good examples. Get ready. So our partnership with WRI led to utilization and launching of what we call the Energy Access Explorer platform, a GIS open source data analytics tool that enables governments to improve energy planning and other stakeholders like the private sector to identify opportunities on maps. So private sector investors, even other donors, as they're designing programs, can identify opportunities for standalone solar solutions. Chivo, Nigeria, gotta be quick.
Yeah.
1 minute. I know that's hard in Nigeria, but we're gonna try. How will the Rural Electrification Authority utilize the AE platform to monitor their off-grid initiatives and identify investment opportunities? And how are they tying this tool to help better coordinate with the states on energy planning?
So once again, good afternoon, everyone. And I think in Nigeria, so let me just give a background quickly. So there's federal government and there's state government. And most of the interventions in the off-grid space are really focused at the federal level. So you have lots of donor support cutting across several areas. And under ACE, we talk about getting interventions cutting across supply, demand, policy regulations, affordability, and several focal areas. Working mainly with KREA as the focal government agency for off-grid verification as per their mandate. That's what we did at the federal level. Now, what interesting thing we did was to look at the sub-national level as well with state government. The grid system of the power sector in Nigeria is centrally controlled by the federal government. However, state governments at the sub-national level are empowered by the Constitution to improve electricity access to off-grid areas not covered by the grid. However, most state governments don't even know what off-grid solar is, or lack the capacity, to really begin to deploy the solutions. It's mainly the extension center. And so one of the things we did was to take a bottom-up approach and look at how do we now improve the environments for off-grid at the sub-national level. And after kind of a market assessment, the first thing we did, the major work we did was to create policies and plans for state governments to attract private sector investment and basically improve electrification, build their capacity and get them more involved. And so now we have more state governments getting more involved in off-grid and solar electrification. Continuing across these 2 things as energy access planning. because the states have to identify where the viable areas are for electrification, where the consumer segments are, how to target rural population, and then also support the private sector with investment to identify where to bring in private sector investments and the like, and for companies to also target. And so that was what the EAE map did. We developed that in collaboration with WRI. They developed the geospatial to support the Nigerian government to improve these energy access planning. And so anchored by RIA, being the focal government agency for government. So what RIA has done is use that to currently identify over 150 sites viable for mini-grid and solar system deployment, and actually even being used in this energy access planning and some of these initiatives such as the energizing agriculture project as well. So that is key, and it's helping to inform and improve targeting for off-grid electrification. Now, the sub-national governments as well are also, it is also beneficial to them, the energy access planning as well. And so through the work we've done with both RIA and state government, to also improve that coordination where states are now sharing data with RIA, and that tool is now being used to coordinate energy access planning at the national and sub-national level. Currently, we are actually at the early stage of developing the EAE tool for Lagos State at the sub-national level. So beyond just supporting energy access planning, supporting coordination between the federal and the state government, and also the private sector as well. So I'll just stop there.
That was fascinating. I don't know if it's 1 minute, but that was a lot of information. I'm glad we're recording it because we'll have to look. I mean, I got it all, but I don't know if everyone else got it all. So let me jump forward. Thanks, Chibu. Fantastic. A lot of different examples there of the impact we made, not just with the Energy Access Explorer platform, but in coordination of the state and federal governments. Thanks. So I'm going to skip because I have to finish soon. So it's unfortunate because I think these guys are really kind of providing a lot of meat to the bone, so to speak. But I'm just going to sit down and kind of get to the end finally. More effective monitoring of energy programs by government is evidenced through multi-stakeholder coordination and collaboration. And we saw that grow and improve over the past 3.5 years. So Doreen, we've stated all along that something called the Off-Grid Task Force in Zambia, a task force instituted by the Vice President's office, has been an example of why structured mechanisms are necessary, and how they have propelled ACE-TAF to achieve so much. How did the task force in Zambia enable the flexible approach that we took with the Ministry of Health when the gap between health centers and electrification was highlighted during the C-19 pandemic?
I'll also try to be brief, but I think to get an understanding, it's also important to just briefly talk about the Off-Grid Task Force, how it's structured, and then I can relate to the work we've been doing with Ministry of Health. So the Off-Grid Task Force in Zambia is really a platform which brings together government, private sector, the donor community to discuss issues which are barriers to the growth of the solar market. And within this, it actually promotes a consultative process and ensures that there's stakeholder engagement. So the Off-Grid Task Force, like I said, has government, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy is the chair, and it sits under Ministry of Energy. It has government, there are certain key ministries which are permanent members. Then you also have members of cooperating partners of the donor community as permanent members as well. From private sector is represented by associations within so we have the Zambia Renewable Energy Association and the Solar Industry Association, and also the Association for Mini-Grids. Then also there are different working groups that have been put in place, such as those looking at consumer affordability, those looking at fiscal incentives, land rights, finance issues, and bioenergy as well. So, like I said, it's a very structured approach, and it has enabled a lot of progress in terms of coordination, ensuring that the resources that are coming in to promote and help the market grow are going to its intended purpose, and there's limited duplication of efforts by the different programs. So taking the same approach, when with COVID, it was realized that there was actually need to see how we could support the Ministry of Energy with regards to understanding the level of investment that would be required to electrify the rural health facilities with solar. And one of the key challenges that was there was actually bringing together the different stakeholders. So within the energy sector, there's focus specifically on energy, and then within the health sector, there are other issues apart from energy which they focus on. So it was important to bring together the stakeholders from the health sector and also the stakeholders from the energy sector. And working with Power for All, we helped establish a coalition which brought together, again, government, civil society, organizations, donors, and also private sector, all working within the health and also the energy sector. One of the things which was important is that, yes, there are issues which cut across when you're looking at off-grid sector, but when you look at energy as an enabler, and when you look at it also from the health sector, there are certain issues which are unique. For instance, when we spoke to the officials from the Ministry of Health, they said, yes, energy is important to address whenever you have like maternity, also you need refrigeration for vaccines and so on. But our core business is really providing health. So if these things break down, we're not really the ones to repair them. And then, so those are some of the real challenges which come up with the electrification of these facilities. Talking to private sector, they say, well, most of these facilities are governmental facilities. So how then do we make a return on our investment? Because the clinics are not really expected to generate income. So bringing the different stakeholders to actually talk about these issues and find solutions helped. An action plan which identified the challenges and the solutions was developed. And then also a call to action, which is actually a call to funders and implementers, has been put together by the coalition and the government. And this action plan, as well as the call to action, is now going to be launched at the investment forum by the government. Another thing which has happened, it was also realized that it's important that there's sustainability, because even as the program ends, these issues will still continue and they need to be addressed, including what is in the action plan. So the coalition now has been made a part of the off-grid task force, so it is a working group. It's now a Solar for Health working group under the off-grid task force, and this will ensure that the issues that were identified and will continue to be identified will be addressed.
Thank you, Doreen. And I can't express how, because that infrastructure was in place, that we were able to accomplish so much in Zambia through a pandemic, through change of government. So we were really able to accomplish quite a bit, and I do believe, and we've seen other anecdotes in other countries, that once you have that task force and all the stakeholders, the government's holding the stakeholders accountable through those task force and those technical working groups, you can get things done a bit faster. We all know it takes time. So what we did actually to improve affordability and energy access is without damaging government revenues, we advocated for favorable tax treatments for a certain period. And we did a study in Malawi, Sierra Leone, and Rwanda, and while tax exemptions would reduce revenues in the short term, other fiscal and wider economic benefits will offset that. Other fiscal benefits include economic benefits, including increased corporate taxes from growth in standalone solar operators, income taxes from upstream jobs, and economic uplift from downstream jobs. So AMI actually, we created tools in several countries, and Aminata in Sierra Leone shared that data, and they're using that data and those tools today to continue the advocacy for the off-grid sector. But let me shift to Mary, who's here with us. Mary, let us tie it all together. So in Kenya, explain how there's been collaboration for quite a long time across a lot of stakeholders. I know there's a lot of government officials that are very invested in standalone solar. How did that enable the members of the different stakeholders to very quickly advocate for tax exemptions when the government actually instituted tax on solar as a response to their COVID recovery plans?
Thanks, I'll try to beat you this time. Okay. Represent the sector and be well able to represent themselves and advocate policy changes. So the actors working in this space, which included ourselves as ACE-TAF, Gobla, I see Patrick in the room, there was GIZ, BFZ, a lot of Power Africa Off-Grid Project, IFC, and all these other people who are actually working together to engage and support the association to improve their capacity. At the same time, we had the Finance Act that imposed tax on solar products on a tax relief bill, nonetheless, addressing the COVID pandemic. And because the actors were already working together and strengthening the association, we then put together some advocacy strategy. We undertook an impact assessment, and our team at ACE led the impact assessment on solar products. And this same methodology was cascaded for clean cooking and the mini-grid sector in Kenya. And we've then subsequently advocated for policy reforms collectively. And so we got solar tax removed last year, and a couple of weeks ago actually, clean cooking got some wins as well. And the coordination platform is still continuing, regular meetings, a lot of press, and just the congruence of the team has really helped the advocacy process. Thank you.
Thanks, that was fabulous. Very good. I think even a little quicker than Chibu in Nigeria. But thanks, Mary. Well, let me ask Nicanor to come over and tell us what's going on. But we're going to take a pause, and then we're going to talk about the big five, not elephants or lions. What are the big five? Elephants, lion, buffalo, rhino, cheetah. Oh. See, I'm not even nice. I'm not African.
I think let's give a clap to they've done a good job just to be able to articulate, the journey that they've walked. And thank you very much. And also thank you for those that are joining us virtually, the team. I think it was Mali, Aminata, and the team. So thank you very much for your contribution. Invite your panelists to join you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're running a little late, so we'll crack on.
And I think going forward, this is critical, and I think there's a lot of examples, but I will use one that close to my heart, which is Mozambique, and there's the impact of climate change that we're feeling, right? And these recent reports that are coming out, we're seeing African countries spend so much of its GDP already on just trying to adapt to climate change impact, yet contributing very little. And what has happened is, well, these climate events are going to happen. They're going to displace people to new places, and these we can call it refugee camps or displacement villages need to then people need to rebuild their lives. And in Mozambique, we're trying to see how energy can really be an enabler for that, because and it's a water energy nexus, but it really comes around to, because they're displaced, because they're only in remote areas, it's through renewable energy that we will be able to rebuild a lot of these local economies. So I think going forward, this is something that's going to happen: displacement, climate change impact, and therefore we really need to start addressing these challenges and rebuilding these communities with an energy on its focus. So I really like that one, and I can see it, the practical implementation of the green economy.
Yeah, Ricardo, that's a great. Let me kind of just comment that you're talking at it from a climate perspective, but what I'm hearing you say is, in order for those displaced persons to build their lives, they need energy. It's a basic, so that's the demand, right? And what we tend to do is react. We say they're displaced, they need energy, right? In IDP camps, even with the UN, they're just looking at, or even refugee camps, right? Ministries or governments or donors need to go to those other sectors and say, how can off-grid help you? How can standalone solutions help you, whether it's mini grids or not? So again, it's from the demand standpoint, instead of saying, we built this technology, here it is, build it and they will come. Absolutely, that's how we built the sector, right? That's how, but now the technology is affordable enough, we need to kind of come at it from the demand side. Great, thanks Ricardo. Online we had, hold on one second, Vittorio, then we'll come back to you.
So we've got a question here from Kasai, and we just want some clarification with the customs handbook. And what he asks is, how much does it help? And
because Chibo explained to us how the custom handbook has been really, what has it done for Nigeria, and how have you updated it, I think, in the...
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Joyce.
You're welcome.
So in Nigeria, one of the key issues the private sector had is really the ambiguity in terms of understanding the importation process for solar home systems exactly. So you have the HS codes through which several solar components are classified. Just basically in a nutshell, you can have two companies bringing the same product and still have to pay different types of taxes and costs. So there's a lot of ambiguity, and it led to a lot of additional costs, because by the time these issues are resolved, the goods or the products will now go into demurrage, creating additional cost. And so what we did with the importation guide was really to speak to all the key government institutions involved in the importation process to understand, okay, how does the process work, ideally with regards to how it's meant to work policy-wise, and then what is the situation on the ground. So it spoke to all the key government stakeholders are involved in the importation process, and with the companies as well, to know what was working and what wasn't working. And that was what informed the importation guide, which is basically a resource tool for stakeholders to use in understanding the ambiguity, the issues, but basically it provided a step-by-step guide on how to bring in solar products into the country. The Power Africa team who has some information that's related to customs to tie it into the document as well. So also looking to other stakeholders through their work to update that as well. But I think yesterday there is need to have, because as the sector evolves, there's also need to look at how do we ensure that the key updates and the key changes are being communicated to the private sector. That is constantly being updated.
That's right.
But, yeah.
So it can be updated, like in some cases in some countries, the association, the private association owns the importation guide, right? Again, but collaborating with others to make, right? Ministry of Finance has to basically sign off on those exemptions, right? But it's in the best interest of the private sector to make sure that that's updated and it's clear, working with others.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, also good, the key platform will be the coordination platform, for example, in Zambia. So when it comes to importation, this is a resource, and then through that coordination platform, they identify gaps and just regularly identify how to update that. So that would also be a platform to keep it.
That's right. Was there another question online?
No, I think we, okay.
No? It's up to in your hand. You have the mic.
Continue really funding programs in the energy access space, and I'm wondering whether you had any reflections on what the next iteration of this program will be.
Thanks for the feedback, Natasha. ACE continues for another year after ACE-TAF. There's also the school funding React Household Solar Challenge Fund. But after that, yes, we are starting to look at what comes next in the energy access area. So welcome crowdsource ideas from yourself and others. But we've got a continuum across FCDO. We are supporting large-scale investment and the innovation side, so way across. And we'll continue to scope and plan what happens next, including with our partners to see where we can add value. So work in progress is my answer.
Great. Any other questions in the room? Yeah, Queen, please.
Well, it wasn't really a question or a comment when you mentioned the flexible energy access facility, and also what Chris just mentioned now. I was just going to say that we've done great work here in ACE-TAF, so thank you so much for the program. But there's definitely still more to go in terms of meeting the demands in regards to the current population, which has demand, but then there's not enough income to access the opportunities that the solar sector offers. But there's also demand from the commercial and industries, and those guys are the biggest emitters of the harmful gases, the greenhouse gases, and I just feel like there needs to be more work done towards that side in terms of how can we up manufacturing of these products here in Nigeria, because then that definitely brings down cost, and everybody is able to afford it easily, and focusing on that sector would also bring more continued growth for the economy, job opportunities, healthcare, and overall well-being. So as you said, there's definitely more requirement for investment facilitation. Just the workshop that we had yesterday before we came to Kenya, in Nigeria, there's a OGS investment forum that we partner with the Links program, and you could just see that there's still so much that needs to be done. So I just want to make that comment.
Top-down approach. So when we talk about we need more investment, right? We started to talk at the beginning, I remember Chibu going, I need supply-side financing. I'm like, if I hear any more people telling me they need access to supply-side financing, right? But we narrowed down and we figured out the practical approach to downside subsidies, alternative consumer financing. So I think that what I'm hearing Chris say is in the next year, they're evaluating what's happening, right? So this flexible energy access facility, if you have ideas, right, very specific ideas, write them down, send them to us, we'll consolidate them, but put that on paper. Instead, right, we often, I was at the SC for All Forum in Kigali in May, and that's exactly what the CEO was saying, right? We're on the ground, we're getting things done, right? Yes, we were announcing $250 million from the Bloomberg to go, a foundation to go into the renewable energy sector. But what SC for All is accountable for, right, reaching SDG 7. How are we going to do that? And what she was saying is, feet are on the ground, we're getting things done. And I think that that's exactly what ACE-TAF did over the past 4 years. And it's an opportunity now, right, as we're handing over, not closing. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of work that still needs 500 million. Still don't have energy access. So there's a lot of work to be done, right? So in the beginning, I said we need to keep those people in mind, right? So let's keep those people in mind. So it's practical solutions, getting it done over the next, I guess, how many years left till SDG 7? 37 years, 8 years. So we have a lot of work to do. But thanks for the comments. Chibu.
The FCDO Nigeria office, which I think is something I would like to share as well. I think one of the successes of COP19 that got a lot of countries to make commitments, was that it was flexible. Countries had to, basically put together what their own ambitions were. There was that flexibility, so there wasn't that rigid. And then at the state level, FCDO has what they call the Mutual Accountability Framework, which is an agreement between FCDO and the state government saying, we commit to doing this during this period, what do you commit to do during this period? And during the course of the work we've done with the state government, there are quarterly meetings that are held to track FCDO has implemented this and the state government has implemented it. Of course, there's some states that have more progress than the others, but then having that sort of mutual accountability framework that both stakeholders realistically commit to doing within certain time frames, because you can have a policy that lasts for like 5, 6, 10 years, and then the new government comes in and then it's not on the agenda. But then those short wins also, and so the successes that have come, for example, the state like Jigawa State, is something I think can improve commitment and implementation of the policies and around work. So I think it's something that is very exciting and could be replicated as well. So just having those people that say, okay, realistically, what can we commit to and what can we do this period in line with your agenda, and then now working to make it a bit easier towards keeping their work. So I want to share that experience as well.
Thanks, Chico. The plug-and-play systems were new, right? So a lot of governments were looking at it as, a lot of governments had on their books solar panels, solar battery, they had different components of solar systems. And these plug-and-play systems, which are targeted to reach the poor and they're plug-and-play, they include the controller, the battery, and everything. So it was quite a challenge to make sure that everyone in the chain, the importation chain, knew what those products look like and how they should be taxed or not taxed and the quality of them. So it was a bit of a challenge. So it was a new product. Thanks, Nicanor. Thanks, everyone. I think I'm finished, yes? Chris, thank you. Next time I want to go to the music festival, so make sure you let me know. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Now we've run out of time, I know, and so we'll try and wind up quickly. Thanks for the online audience for your comments. And if you still have any other comment that you think has just come up, please put it there and we'll get someone as we wind up just to respond to that. So finally, we move on. As we said, this journey has been a long journey, and alongside we've worked with some of our partners. And so I want to just ask them maybe 2 or so minutes to come and make some few remarks. And let me start with a lady, Nkatha, here, Nkatha Nishira from the IFC, to come and make brief comments. And then after that, I know Ricardo is here. Also Sil, Patrick is here, so you follow each other in that order as we move on. So, welcome, Nkatha.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nkatha Nishira. I work with the IFC based in Nairobi. It is really nice to see a lot of you and meet a lot of you in person, who I have been seeing over the last couple of years on my screen. This is a really fantastic opportunity. And it has been a privilege to work with all of you on this fantastic program. The IFC team, core team that has been working on the ACE program is well represented here today. There is myself, who has been managing the operation side of the program. Itotia, who was on the panel earlier, is our climate finance practice group lead for Africa, and this program sits under his docket. And I'm sure you all know Nana Asamoah Menu, who is based in Johannesburg, and I think is joining us virtually. And from all of us, again, it has really been an honor to work on this program. I've been given 2 minutes, but I have like 10 pages prepared here, so I'm trying to rush through them really fast. As IFC, we share the ambition to develop the renewable energy market and catalyze a market-based approach to adopt off-grid solar electrification technologies with a specific focus on high-quality standalone solar systems in Africa. From 2009, the IFC Lighting Africa program worked with manufacturers, distributors, and financial intermediaries and governments to catalyze the off-grid energy market in Africa. We have worked with the ACE-TAF team and other implementing partners of FCDO's ACE program right from 2018. Our role has cut across several elements, starting as strategic partners and as core implementers of the quality assurance interventions. I know you may have had a bit of this over and over again, but I'll just highlight a few things. Working together with our partners like Tetra Tech and CLAS, who have really been instrumental. Key achievements have included strategy development for the focus countries and national standards adoption in 10 countries out of the 14 that we originally started working on. 9 have been gazetted, and Colin, we're waiting for Tanzania. With the partners, we have also managed to work on the installation of solar testing labs in Zambia, Nigeria, Kenya, and Ethiopia. The labs in Zambia and Nigeria were launched recently. Some of you were present. And just this month, we concluded training and setup of the lab in Nairobi. As Kenasa mentioned earlier, the Ethiopia team was in Nairobi for training, and they went back this month to complete setting up of the lab, and we expect that to be done soon. Tetra Tech has been instrumental in the successful implementation of the quality standards work and the setup of the labs on the ground by providing coordination support. And special thanks goes to the ACE-TAF country managers and the assistant country managers who have made significant progress in the face of such huge challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic. And sometimes I know it felt like you were taking 3 steps forward and then 4 steps back, but ultimately we have made significant progress. With the AECF team, IFC started working with them a few years ago and reviewed the technical assistance needs and provided recommendations for the round 1 investees. In the face of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need for AECF investees to prepare themselves to raise local currency financing, IFC also developed and delivered a series of training webinars that covered topics such as surviving today to thrive tomorrow, adjusting your business plan in crisis, and accessing finance in crisis. IFC also provided the SME investees with linkages to local financial institutions. ACE-TAF's work on coordination and outreach to different sectors has been invaluable in reaching these key milestones. We appreciate the great working relationships, collaboration, the quality and enthusiasm of the ACE-TAF team members, and their resilience and innovative approaches, particularly during the pandemic. We would particularly like to commend the team on their ability and willingness to learn about the dynamic environments in the different markets and for their admirable efforts to collaborate with a wide range of stakeholders. In the immediate future, IFC will be working with the World Bank Energy programs and partners such as CLASP to ensure that the labs that we have set up in the 4 countries are incorporated into the international Verisol lab network, and that they have developed sustainability plans, and that the country's market surveillance efforts are monitored. Between September and December last year, we actually did small pockets of dipstick surveys, market surveillance, to understand the market share of quality verified products in 5 markets. And we will, again, though impact takes time to deliver, we will be looking at the progress that the countries have made in the next couple of months. IFC also introduced to ACF the Path to Profitability tool, whose implementation for SMEs will enable them modify their business models towards sustainability. Finally, on behalf of the IFC team, we'd like to congratulate the entire ACE-TAF team, FCDO, and all the implementing partners for the success achieved by this initiative in the sector over the last 4 years, and we look forward to doing a lot more in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you once again for the opportunity. I am here in representation of our Director of Investments, Sanjeev, who unfortunately could not be here and hence his apologies. So I also have a couple of pages, but I'll be quick. So I'll start by saying that our investees need a conducive environment to deliver off-grid products, and to that end, the role of ACE-TAF in the countries where our investees have worked has been invaluable. In the fragile economies where we work, the ever-increasing need to engage the policymakers to unlock bottlenecks which impact the delivery of affordable energy remains at the center of delivery, SDG 7. We are grateful for the work that ACE-TAF has undertaken, and specifically would like to give the team an applause for the following. The enabling environment, which we've spoken so many times, and developing evidence to inform policymakers across 14 African countries. But more specifically, the impact assessment on the VAT and import duties for the sector across these several markets. It's a great example of the power of evidence to inform appropriate reforms. In Kenya, for instance, the impact of the study resulted in sectoral advocacy, resulting in the removal of VAT of solar products. The study also influenced cooking and mini-grid subsectors on the same to multiply the benefits of suitable exemptions, and notably private sector delivery on the renewable energy products. The work on quality insurance is a real game changer. And in the countries where ACE-TAF has successfully advocated the adoption of the International Electrical Chemical Commission and the standards for solar powered equipment under 350 watts, our investees, all of them, supply Lightning Global certified products, and these standards support the market by ensuring that only quality products are allowed. This is without a doubt an invaluable addition to the sector. Number 2, the coordination. This has been a key component of ACE-TAF, and which we at ACF have found not only valuable, but also important to take up after the closure of this program. For example, we've picked up the coordination of the sectors in Zimbabwe, reinvigorating this platform and continuing to work everything that you have started. The true value of coordination is seen from the reduced duplication of efforts by sector actors. We are excited to see how the Zimbabwe coordination platform will result in improvements to the renewable energy sector. This can also be said about the coordination platforms that ACE-TAF was working and led by the Ministries of Water and Energy in Ethiopia, which we will also continue to champion. Going forward, ACF will take up key interventions in Ethiopia. ACE-TAF has undertaken the impact assessment on tax and duties on solar projects. And 2 months ago, we had the news of the 15% import duty on solar projects being introduced, which immediately impacted the affordability of the solar products. There's an urgent need for our investees who struggle to navigate these complex custom processes to incur an additional cost on these newly imposed. And we recognize that ACE-TAF has also developed a handbook, which we are not only sharing with our investees, but we also hope that this simplifies the process for them. However, this does remain a key challenge in the markets and requires concerted effort by ACF and all of the other stakeholders in this room to increase the likelihood and removal of this duty. The access to adequate forex continues to be a challenge in Ethiopia, and it's been impacted on the delivery of renewable energy products. While as ACF we have managed to access the forex for our investees directly, the more critical need is the prioritization of forex for this sector. And ACE-TAF is undertaking the study that will now make the case for the prioritization of the solar subsector. For ACF, we are interested in the prioritization, and we will use the study developed by ACE-TAF as a test case to advocate the availability and adequate forex for the sector. In Zambia and Nigeria, there's meaningful work that has been done by ACE-TAF, and in our early discussions, we indicated our willingness to take up on some of those key interventions. So in conclusion, the work that ACE-TAF has done has been valuable and a real testament to the value of the sector actively driving the policy reform conversation. Where we have committed to continue the work of ACE-TAF, we will do our best to bring these policy changes to fruition, and to where we can support the delivery of energy access for the rural and marginalized populations. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, the entire ACE-TAF team for the great work and so far, and I'm sure that we will see you all in the sector, and we wish you the best of luck. Before I close, a special mention that the AFC again sends our heartfelt condolences to the team for the loss of Pauline. She was dear to our colleagues, Caroline and Mary, and as you all know, we are very grateful for her and the contribution to the sector. Thank you very much.
Right. There's been a lot of thanking today, and that is as it should be, because there are lots of people who've worked together over the last 4 years, lots of organisations that have worked together over the last 4 or 5 years that have contributed to the progress that the sector has made in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm not going to go around the houses and thank everybody again. But what I would like to do perhaps is to particularly thank my own team, and not the stars of the show, not the Chibus, yes, and the Joyces and the Doreens, but there's a lot of people operating in the background that enables us to do our work. People like Ian, who's sitting up there, who patiently puts up with all our comings and goings and sort of keeps us on the straight and narrow, and Emily as well, and Justin, who's looked after our security across this part of the world, and Javier, who's made sure our accounting is in order, and Doreen, who's done the procurement stuff, and Brenda, who looks after the books, and all these sort of other people. There are a lot of other people in the background across Tetra Tech who, if they weren't doing what they're doing, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So I particularly want to thank them, and perhaps I better include also our assistant country managers. I was once an assistant country manager, and you kind of live in the shade a bit. And so I think it's also important to remember Queen and Desalin and Brian, and before Brian, Isaiah, and some of the other assistant country managers. You know, without the assistants, the country managers are not as effective as they think they should be, or are. I'm not going to go into a resume of the day. I think we've done that quite a lot already, but I think basically what I think we have is we have an impressive understanding collectively and insights into what it takes to build sustainable and systemic solar, standalone solar, other off-grid energy markets, and integrate the grid and off-grid. And perhaps today we've not made enough about how that off-grid, on-grid, off-grid grid process is working. It is a significant change that, you know, given will enable us to address the universal energy access for all target that we're all focused upon. So I think we've got the experience, we've got the skills, we've got the understanding. And as such, the fact that ACE-TAF is coming to an end is really neither here nor there in the bigger scheme of things. It's simply a step in a journey. It's been our journey, but it's a step in a longer journey. And Joyce and I, and Pauline, when she was still with us, have always been very confident that our partners, the other champions, particularly the host governments with whom we've worked, the interministerial councils, the off-grid task forces, All these champions are in place and they're committed and they will take forward the agenda. And I think investors, donors and others can join and continue in that journey with confidence. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the many people who came online despite the, shall we say, hiccups in our technology today. Perhaps it's a good lesson to us all that now that we don't have to do everything online anymore. It's quite nice to meet in person. As we said to Claire when she arrived in our office a couple of days ago, it's the first time we've actually met Claire in well over 2 years. So, more in-person meetings, say I. Thank you very much indeed, and I think there are some refreshments still outside, are there? Yes, no? Are there any refreshments still left? Are there some cocktails there?
Yeah.
Good, okay, well please, if you can stay and have a quick drink with us, that would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much indeed.
You know, it's been a long day, so I don't want to take much time, but you know, mine is to thank you, and I wanted to see if we could show you, you know, just some of the resources that are available that you can be able to access quite a lot, as you've heard today. Through this journey, we have generated very, very, very useful resources that will endure, that are going to stay beyond ACE-TAF, and that those resources are available to all of you via the ACE-TAF website, so you can log in that. I think that's just some of the resources that are available. We'll leave that on the screen for you to be able to, you know, just link up on any of those ones. We also have a little catalog that we've produced. I think it's also available online, and that can also be accessed virtually. So with those few comments, I want us to bring this meeting to an end, and sincerely again apologize for that technical hitch, and I completely agree with Jeremy 100% that you know, in person remains the best option, but we'll work and see how we perfect this. So, Chris, you have something you want to add? Yes, no, just coming. So, what I want them to ask is if we could have a group photo for those people that are in person here. Amos, are you going to organize this? Do we do it inside here?
I think we do it inside your base.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Can we say goodbye to the online?
Yeah. So we'll do that. Having said that, again, thank you very much, and our online virtual community, we really appreciate for your patience and staying almost close to 4 hours just following us. So we thank you very much, and wish you all the best. Kwaheri, as we say here in Swahili.